We have the Honorable Minister of Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs. He administers all the acts which are around our elections and the whole process from the government point of view. On his right, we have the Secretary for Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs, Advocate Virginia Mabiza. Of course, is Honorable Ziyambi. We have the team from the ministry as well. We've got the Chief Director, Godzi. My name is Nick Mangwana. I'm Secretary for Information, Publicity and Broadcasting Services. The Minister will read, will make his prepared remarks. After that, you will be allowed to ask questions. Hopefully, there won't be too many because it's a bit late. Honorable Minister, when you're ready.
Thank you very much, Secretary Mangwana. I want to welcome you all and a very good evening to you all.
Please.
Oh, the Secretary for Information had not told me who is here. He just introduced me and my team. There are several.
Okay, we have media houses. I think it will take us a long time to get a view of those. But very quickly, just shout who you are, where are you from? Okay, fine. But we have local international media. Okay. We have electronic media. We have online media. I think I saw Teneo. I saw ZBC here. I saw NRTV. I saw, Russia Today, RT. I saw some people I don't know. But we also have visitors who have come to be with us from Namibia. Yeah.
Thank you very much, our brothers and sisters.
From, our observers from Namibia who have come to witness and,
thank you.
Take part in here. So, Honorable Minister, if you have no other problems, let's proceed.
Thank you very much. Like I said earlier, good evening to you all. We have called this press conference to enable us as government to respond to some of the shocking inaccuracies and misrepresentations of the state of our democratic institutions and our laws and the conduct of the 23rd to 24th August election by some election observer missions. But I must preface that we have received several observer reports, preliminary reports, and some are very balanced and objective, but we believe that as government we must always respond when inaccuracies are peddled around and we need to set the record straight. Before I go further, let me state a historical fact. Zimbabwe was never given democracy on a silver platter. We waged a war for over 15 years so that you and I, Zimbabweans here, will be able to hold a pen in our hand and put an X. And the majority of those that are making loud voices, they never helped us. It's the blood and sweat of sons and daughters of Zimbabwe. Some lying in forests, unmarked graves, nobody knows where they've died, and some we know where they are. They were laid to rest. So the basic principle is, since 1980 when we got independence, we told ourselves, we fought for this democracy. We have elections when they are due, and we have religiously followed that to this day. So we believe that some of those who want to teach us on democracy, they can actually get lessons from us. And it's very disappointing that some of the reports that have been issued so far read like a script from one of the election contenders as there appears to be some wholesome adoption of their position as an established fact. In fact, even before the election, you could follow. Some of you, you can follow what some people have been saying. And it has exactly been reproduced by some of the election observers without even bothering to hear the other side of the story. And we believe that is not balanced reportage. And there is a striking semblance in diction and nuances between certain reports that have been produced by certain observers. And this cannot be a coincidence to say that if you read this report and you read this report, you can almost tell that the writer is the same. And we believe that it's something that we cannot allow to go unnoticed, because it was strikingly there for all to see. And we said there is an agenda to this. However, as government, we always welcome and appreciate progressive comments that are aimed at strengthening our systems, institutions, processes, as this tallies very well with our Vision 2030. And we aim to enhance all facets of our society. However, we take strong objection to any statements that deviate from defined mandate and the code of conduct of observers. I'm saying this because when observers come to our country to observe elections, they have not come here to rewrite our laws. If we have a constitution that dictates what we are supposed to do, and laws, observers are there to follow whether our processes are within the confines of our laws. But some of the comments, like one which was saying that we were supposed to allow homosexuals to contest, as if we even ask your sexuality when you go to ZEC to put your nomination papers, notwithstanding that our culture does not allow that. And then they come here to say we must recognize minorities. I think that was also an example of uncalled reportage to try to tarnish the whole process in a manner that we felt that we should respond. Coming to issues of political and the security environment, I want to state that we are a very peaceful nation. If there are international observers here and even local international reporters or local journalists who have traveled, you admit that your country is one of the most peaceful in the world. And we take pride in that. And we believe that this peaceful culture that we have is an essential ingredient for us to hold a credible election. And as the Second Republic, you will recall that all the rallies that His Excellency has addressed, he hammered on this point. Let's be peaceful. Let's ensure that we remember that after an election we have a life to live. We are brothers and sisters, father, son, and no one has made this clarion call for peace more than His Excellency. And I think issues to say that the environment was not peaceful were a script from a contender, but they do not depict what was on the ground. In fact, during the pre-election period, sometimes you drive across the country, you do not notice that we are in an election period. It was very quiet indeed. And as government, we are actually alarmed that some reports went on and on and on about the delimitation process. Those of you, local journalists, even some international journalists, are aware that the chairman of the parliamentary committee that looked into the delimitation report was from ZANU-PF. And those who followed parliamentary proceedings will know that this was widely debated. And these very same people who are attacking our system, they always speak about upholding constitutionalism. Our laws as they are dictate that ZEC has a final say in the delimitation process. And as a country, we didn't want to violate our constitution and not accept what ZEC was saying about the delimitation process. In other words, whatever the delimitation report was, or how the country was delimited, it affected all parties equally. And this is an established fact, because the voting in parliament, the sentiments was the same across the board. But all of a sudden, we find it being sneaked into the observer mission report, a process outside their mandate to observe the election. Observers do not come here to dictate how we legislate, but they come here to observe, at our invitation, by the way, how we are conducting our elections, and whether we have whether that is consistent to the laws that we have. And we believe that this comment was outside the mandate that some of these observers had been given. And on freedom of assembly, there was an insinuation that ZANU-PF is the only one that was allowed to hold rallies, and the other parties, they had their rallies cancelled, or they were denied by the police permission to hold their rallies. I think we have this information in the public domain. The police have issued statements which indicate actually that ZANU-PF has more political rallies that were denied or cancelled by the police because of security reasons, more than the opposition. And we believe that this was not a fair comment, but one which was taken from a script of somebody who simply wanted to ensure that the narrative that the process was not free and fair is maintained. You will recall that before elections were even held, some of the candidates were saying that the only legitimate result is when we win, when I win. You go and play a football match and you say, this match will be, the referee would have refereed it fairly if only I win. If the other team wins, it was not fair. And this is the position now that is being put in some of these observer mission reports, and we say that is not very fair and factual. We believe that if you look at the statistics of what happened during campaign, we had several rallies that were denied, and we believe that this was not a fair reflection of what transpired. And then there was a comment that was shocking about freedom of expression, and they go on to mention the so-called Patriotic Act. There is no such thing as Patriotic Act that was enacted in Zimbabwe. We amended the criminal code to criminalize conduct whereby if you are a Zimbabwean, you engage a foreign government with the intention of injuring the sovereignty of Zimbabwe, or with an intention to ensure that trade restrictions or sanctions are imposed on your country. In other words, if you attend a meeting, and in that meeting you fully know that what we are discussing here is to overthrow a constitutionally elected government, or we want to ensure that there is trade embargo, that is what was criminalized. But some of the observers went to town to say that even speaking to people in queues has been criminalized by the government of Zimbabwe. And in any event, that amendment was only signed a few days before elections. So how was it going to affect anyone? And we believe sometimes fair reporting is required in that regard. And then there was the issue that they raised on nomination of candidates and nomination fees. We had $1,000 fee for MPs, 10,000 for presidential candidates. The only court challenge that I'm aware of was a challenge that was brought by certain individuals to say that Parliament did not follow through the processes of ensuring that that particular statutory instrument is approved by Parliament. And the courts ruled on that and said Parliament must complete the process. And we duly went to Parliament, it was tabled in the House, and Parliament agreed. And I'm not aware of any other challenge that came, save that of Linda Msarara, who wanted to be allowed to pay out of time. And the courts, when she went to court, she lost that case. So I'm not sure where they are getting it that Zimbabweans were not happy with those fees. Because if you are not happy, you go to court. That's the separation of powers. If the executive puts something that you don't agree with, you can go to court. There was no challenge. So I'm not sure where they are getting this, because the only legal challenge that was brought pertained to procedural issues, which Parliament then agreed to look into, and they duly did that. And then there was the issue that was raised on participation of women as candidates. The report does not even applaud government to say that the government of Zimbabwe decided to extend the women's quota by another 10 years as an empowerment tool and something that we use to encourage women to participate in politics. They didn't mention that in our parliament in Southern Africa, we actually have more women legislators than our neighbors. Our Senate is slightly over 50% women, because we have a zebra system where the first candidate after that is considered is female, then male. So every party, if you have fewer senators, you have women candidates. And they never mentioned it. Notwithstanding that here in Zimbabwe we now have millionaires and billionaires who are women. It's only that is something nobody has done that survey. But we have several of them, and they are now being given a nickname. By some of you, you may know the nickname that they are given. We now have them that are empowered. And this is the work of the Second Republic. We have put in policies. If we are appointing a commission or any board in government, we insist that it must be 50-50. It's not there. But they are picking what law to attack, what procedure to attack, but not mentioning that as Zimbabweans were even proud that we are doing a lot to ensure that. We even extended 30% proportional representation as women to councillors. And all this, there is an attack that we are not including women. And we feel that this was uncalled for. And then they didn't end there. The script was written again and given to them to say, let's attack the judiciary. And I wish to take great exception to the unwarranted attack on the judiciary. I think the judiciary must be left alone. And this business of attacking them unnecessarily is very much regretted. And with all due respect, these sentiments are not only unfair, unfounded, but substantially untrue. They allege that our judges were bribed, but they never produced a copy of the conditions of service of judges, which indicate our judges are not supposed to be given loans, which indicate what our judges are supposed to be given as part of their conditions of service. So we believe that that attack was extremely unwarranted. Not only that, they celebrate when a judgment is in their favor. In fact, there was a court case pertaining to what happened in Bulawayo on nomination day, and some candidates were querying that it went outside the timelines. The court rejected that. And those candidates, all of them won. They are silent about that. The judges were good in that regard. But when they lose in another area, all of a sudden the judges have been bribed. But when they do something which favor them, they remain silent. And we believe that that is also very much unwarranted and was not necessary. And it was based on hearsay information, again, which cannot be substantiated, as I said earlier. And it is my hope that the observer missions will maintain their integrity and desist from attacking our revered institutions, which admittedly are the backbone of our democracy. Because sometimes when we cannot agree among ourselves as political parties or as citizens, if we feel aggrieved by what government has done, we go to the courts. And now when we attack the very same institutions unnecessarily, we believe that that is not acceptable. And then there was a whole section where they spoke about alleged intimidation of voters and postal voting controversy. And this information was never investigated. And we believe that it requires investigation before making false conclusions. And it is my considered view that this was extremely false. They even go on and on to speak about one affiliate called FAS that they were intimidating, that they put on a desk. No law was violated. Our laws allow us to dance and sing 300 meters away from the polling station. Whatever we do 300 or more away from the polling station is perfectly legal, provided we are not violating any other law that exists in the country. So I think sometimes it's very good to appreciate the laws before making conclusions that this particular behavior resulted in some form of intimidation. And in any event, we have several constituencies which went either way, in rural areas and in urban areas. There is no consistent pattern which has been established to say that where this particular NGO was, all other parties didn't win. Nothing like that has been established, and the report does not show that. So we believe that when we request our friends or our fellow other countries to come and observe our elections, they must be very objective and pinpoint things that will enrich our democracy, rather than becoming a tool to attack our sovereignty as they have always been doing. And observation and on coverage of elections by state-owned media, which is an attack on my Muzukuru here, that the state media was biased. My considered view is that it is not government business to mobilize political players to present themselves and their work to the media. It was not part of the mandate of ZBC to be running around looking for opposition or ruling party players to say, can you interview me? Rather, you subject yourself, the law allows. And I remember, and this is an established fact, several reports on ZBC when they were interviewing, and some opposition contestants were saying, we need clearance from our superiors. At the end of the day, it's now turned around and said the public media didn't want to give an interview. I think that is also not a very fair comment, which portrayed wrongly events that were obtaining on the ground. And on observation on election days, which is 23 and 24. By the way, I also picked up that they were attacking the extension by His Excellency when ballots could not reach the polling stations on time. In fact, I think that was one of the most important decisions that was made by His Excellency to ensure that everyone exercised their right. If you look at Harare, which was affected, the majority of areas where this extension was applied, His Excellency's party lost. Look at Bulawayo, where it was exercised. The very same beneficiaries are saying we didn't want to benefit. It will tell you that the script that they had written, that they wanted to produce because they knew that they were going to lose, to say this process was not free and fair. So it has been produced, but it's so fatally defective that you would laugh to say that, where is this coming from? Everyone was given an opportunity to exercise their vote. Everyone was given the same number of hours. Each and every polling station was given the same number of hours, and we believe that this was very much commendable. And on this particular day, the observers, the majority of them, confirmed that the peaceful and calm environment that characterized our polling stations, and I'm sure that they had an opportunity also to get a detailed explanation from ZEC on some of the unforeseen challenges which ZEC encountered. Some of them, they are admitting that it was very peaceful. Even where there were delays, our people remained peaceful. And we want to commend our Zimbabweans for that. They remained patient, peaceful. They understood the explanation that they were given by ZEC. Those that were told that you vote the following day, they went home peacefully, came and voted. I may be aggrieved that when they came and voted, they didn't vote for me or for my party. But that is the democracy that we fought for. And it happened, and we do not have any incidences of violence in that regard. However, we had logistical problems that happened, and if in any event, any process, you are bound to have challenges. And these challenges were addressed, and all our people voted. On recommendations, we are eagerly awaiting the final recommendations after the proclamation of results, and it is noteworthy. It is worth noting that we actually had a video circulating with a member of an observer mission handing a note to a CCC candidate, and we are not aware of the contents of such notes. And then all of a sudden we have a report similar to what we already have, the complaints that they've always been saying. And in the absence of an explanation, we'll just be left only to speculate on the contents of the note thereof. And having said that, it is also my grave concern that the EU has also heavily relied on what appears to be the position of the CCC in attacking our democracy, our laws, and our sovereignty. When we state that we are an enemy of none, it does not mean that we are blind to the machinations of some elements that have imposed sanctions on us. And it is our sincere belief that we are moving forward towards re-engagement in earnest. We are saying to ourselves, we don't want to make enemies. But we are not blind. Those that want to be friends with us will gladly accept. Those that will choose that they don't want to be friends with us, we will not force them to be friends with us. And it is important to note that when observers come to a country holding an election, their mandate is limited to fact-finding related to the specific poll and not to a collection of grievances as witnessed in the report by our dear brother from Zambia. and the EU reports. In fact, I do not even know where he was getting his report from the brother from Zambia. I do not believe that is a true reflection of the entire team that he was heading, or the thinking of SADC. Yeah, I think he simply decided to use his prerogative as the head of the mission to issue a statement that is more or less similar to grievances that we already knew some of the contenders were saying. And we are very happy that you attended this. We wanted to set the record straight that when observers come, they stick to what they came to do. We have laws, we have our democratic institutions, we have procedures, and theirs is not to come and tell us kuti ngochani ngadzive pama candidates. We have never gone to their countries to say, can you allow polygamy? We have stayed in our country and said we will do things the way we do as Africans. And lastly, I want to say, no country brought democracy to Zimbabwe. It's the blood and sweat of daughters and sons of this country. Thank you very much.
Wow. Thank you, Honorable Minister. There you are, members of the media. We will take we have 2 rounds of 4 questions each. Honorable Minister, do you want to take a question at a time, or you take all 4 in this round?
4, yeah.
Then you respond, then 4 in the next round. Okay. So I'm sorry if we don't pick you up, but we will allow each one a chance. Of course, there are more than 8 people in this room, so you would understand. So state the media house you are working for or you represent, so your name and the media house you represent, and a question per person. Not one person asks 4 questions and says I'm just one person, right? So I will start close to me here. Your name and the media house.
Thank you so much, PS Mangwana. I don't know if I'm allowed to have at least 2.
No.
One. Okay, one.
Just so among your burning questions, or most burning, choose the one which is so pertinent, the one that's making you gasp.
That is fine. I like 4. Anyway, Honorable Minister, I just wanted to understand.
Identity.
Sorry.
My name is Tony Rutsito. I'm with Checkmate TV.
Rutsito.
Yes. I need
Tony,
T-O-N-E-O. I need to understand something as a matter of fact. You were introduced to us as the Minister of Justice. Are you still the Minister of Justice after cabinet has been dissolved, so that we fully understand on whose capacity and what office we are standing? And that one hasn't been questioned, but because I should ask one, I'll stop there, because I think more.
Okay. Thank you very much, Shadaya. Next. Raise your hands. If you don't, I'll give Shadaya another shot. Sorry.
My name is Mary Mundea. I'm from RT. Honorable Minister, I want to ask...
You said you?
Mary Mundea from RT. Russia Today.
I've got a question in regards to stories that we've seen online in regards to how Zimbabweans are anxiously waiting for poll results amid heavy police presence. Can you kindly clarify in regards to security presence by the command center?
Okay, thank you, Mary. Yes,
From which?
Roger Mashingaidze from NLR TV.
My question is pertaining to the last part of your presentation on the sentiments by the head of mission from SADC. Now, Zimbabwe being a member of SADC, the issues that we raised speak to the election. And you are saying that what happened, some of the concerns that they raised, they are not in conformity with the guidelines on how we are supposed to conduct elections. So as a member, what recourse do we have if they are to maintain that stance?
Okay. Did you capture that, Honorable Minister?
Can you repeat?
Yes.
Recourse.
Okay.
Oh, it's okay.
So I think in summary, let me see if I can validate what you said, Roderick. He is saying some of the observers went outside their mandate, that's what you said, and outside the code of conduct, and made pronouncements which were outside those. So what recourse do we have as a country over that? Is that correct?
Summarily, yes, it's
Repeat.
Yes to that. The issue is, they are saying you violated the guidelines on SADC on conducting elections, right? He is speaking as if it's the position given by SADC. As a member state, Zimbabwe, we are aggrieved because of what has been said. What recourse do we have? If they are to maintain that.
The statement says some issues were not compliant with SADC guidelines on elections.
Yeah, it's okay.
That's fine. Thanks, Roderick. I think for this round, let's take the last one. Oh, yes.
Thank you. Thomas Maduku, Joseph Richard.
Thomas Maduku, Joseph Richard.
Is there anything wrong with the observer mission seeing the same things with other participants? If they get the same facts or the same information from the observation, is there anything wrong with that?
Thank you very much, Maduku. When you are ready, Honorable Minister, just give us a few seconds. Okay.
Thank you very much. I will start with the first one from Rutsito, where he said, are you still a cabinet minister? Who told you that cabinet was dissolved? If I may ask, because you stated as a fact that cabinet was dissolved.
As a constitutional issue, Honorable Minister, cabinet should be dissolved, if I'm not mistaken, 2-3 days before election.
Oh, that's your understanding. You are totally lost.
Unless if I'm lost.
The tenure of a cabinet minister, according to the constitution you are quoting on section 108, I will cease to be a minister upon the assumption of office by a new president. So, if you go and read section 108 of the Constitution, you clearly understand that you were shooting in the dark. The next one by Mundeya, Russia Today, saying that we are waiting for results amid police presence, heavy police presence. The police have already issued a statement in that regard. I'm sure it's very detailed. But what I can tell you is, if it's necessary to preserve life, and we go through this process without losing a life, and that entails having a heavy police presence, I'm sure you would prefer that. Then Mashingaidze, you're saying there were violations on SADC guidelines, alleged, and what recourse do we have as Zimbabwe? First thing is, we don't hold elections according to SADC guidelines. We hold elections according to Zimbabwean laws. But however, we try to ensure that our laws are consistent with the guidelines. These are guidelines that will guide, but we have our own laws. And it's not even an established fact that there is any guideline that has been violated, which is why we said some of these issues, we want them to substantiate, and hopefully they will in their report. And we believe that it was the position of one person and not the entire delegation. I have had the privilege of having conversation with some of the delegates. By the way, they requested to visit some of the rallies during campaign, We had conversations with some of them. I think their thinking is totally divorced from the head of mission. So we believe that as we await the final report, which we hopefully the other members of the delegation will put the head of mission to task to say that let's do things professionally without deviating from our mandate. And then Maduku said, is there anything wrong with observers seeing the same thing? I want to give you a very good, a real life story that happened to me when I was at university. I didn't write my assignment. So I went to my friend and said, can I have the assignment? Have you finished? So he gave me. And I copied it. And then when the professor had marked, I got my paper. I said, C, Gutu for marks. Gutu's paper was C, Ziambi for marks. There's nothing wrong in answering a question or seeing the same view, but you cannot, like I said, almost word to word save when you change maybe diction here and there. And then you look at what some people were saying, and then it's more or less word to word. We are not that down to not to pick that, like what this professor did. We never got marks for that that assignment. The only mark that was there, C. And then when we looked at it, we just went to him and laughed and said, sorry. So what do we do? He said, but why did you do this? So this is exactly what we are saying. There's nothing wrong in seeing things the same way, but it cannot be like that. I think I've answered this set of questions.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for doing justice to the first 4 questions. We are going to the second final session. Like I said, we would like a different set of people. So let's start with you.
Okay, thank you. Question from a freelance journalist.
Nkomo.
Yes. So mine is closely related to Roger's question. What harm is Zimbabwe going to suffer in the event that SADC maintains its position on the credibility of this election?
Yes.
Thank you, PS. My name is Nyasham Kabuko. I'm a freelance journalist.
They said that. They even said they are not credible. They even said they are not credible.
So you said you are.
My name is Nyasham Kabuko. I'm a freelance journalist. Honorable Minister, I seem to suggest when one of the observers mentioned the minority groups, he was talking about LGBTQI community. But from my understanding, I also understand that minority groups can mean people living with disabilities or religious groups.
Okay, just for clarity, before we put the questions to the Honorable Minister, I will take the liberty of reading you what the Honorable Minister was referring to, lest you missed it. It's actually very specific about that. What page was that, Honorable Minister? Just bear with us while we're locating. Got it?
I got it.
Yeah, it's, I would read. Men, let me start a bit. Those are necessary to get, those are necessary, they were talking about identity documents. Those are necessary to get right to vote, as they are unable to obtain documentation such as birth certificates. So forget that. And, those are necessary to get an identity document, which is a prerequisite to register to vote, as a study.
No, so the last study,
let me give. Political parties and candidates are silent on people of diverse sexual identities. During the campaign, the LGBTIQ plus phobic insults circulated, and there is no openly LGBTIQ, whatever, plus candidate or public official.
Yeah,
According to CSO's community members are harassed.
you've answered it.
So that's the question. They said among the candidates there is no openly LG, and that's a problem. So that's what the minister was addressing. So I will give you another chance to ask another person.
If you
So okay, so
so that
another
one is, so we remove that one.
yeah.
What's
What's
more?
more?
I'm a technology. I'm a journalist in technology.
Can we that's isn't that the same with this one?
Yes,
Okay, do we have another media house before? No, if there is nobody, we'll give you a chance, but we have got a number of media houses here. So please, I mean, it's easy. You to years past the other person you wanted to ask, you never got a chance. It happens. Is there another media house? I said if there is none, we'll give you another take. Okay, so there is none, we'll give you a chance.
The Honourable Minister mentioned about facts, and it appears he was actually defending the existence of this organization. He also alluded to the fact that whatever they are doing is within the law. He said as long as they were doing it within 300 meters of the polling stations. Is this an acknowledgement on government's part that FAS is part of government's efforts to retain power at all costs?
Okay, thank you for your question. Before I give Mary another chance, another shot, is there any person? Well, you guys have already.
Is this one person?
Yeah, but now you have dominated, so we will give Mary another shot. If there is no other person out there, because there was two persons as a media house, and Mary can ask Keith to ask a question on his behalf. So we'll give Mary a chance. RT.
Honourable Minister, I've got a question in regards to the preparedness of SADC from your position as a party.
As a government.
As a government.
Sitting as a government.
I would want to understand whether you were happy with what happened as far as the voting process on the 23rd and 24th, and what's your position at this point in time in regards to what took place in terms of preparedness of the Electoral Commission?
Thank you. I think that's our final question, right? Yeah, okay. So we are going to answer these questions and close. Honourable Minister, can you read us the question?
Thank you very much. The first question was from Kongo.
Costa Gomo.
Yes, he said, what harm is Zimbabwe going to suffer if SADC maintains its position? Firstly, let me say, observers are observers. Our elections are governed by our laws, not by observers. So there's no harm. But observers are our friends or organizations that we invite to say, we have this function. Come and observe how we are doing things so that you can help us improve. It's like auditors. So there's no harm. Heads of state do not sit in summit to scrutinize and say, why did you conduct your elections like this? We'll be attacking each other's sovereignty. So, however, we discuss as brothers within SADC on how we can help each other. And that's the reason why you have always seen that the first observers that we call our brothers and sisters, then the rest. So, I hope I have answered. And then there was an issue of FAS, that is it an acknowledgement that FAS is a part of government. Government does not go to elections. It's political parties. So political parties are free to engage any legal registered trusts or NGOs to work with, provided they have the same ideology. In this case, I never confirmed that FAS was working with ZANU-PF, but I said any organization or any person who is 300 meters is free to exercise the freedoms enshrined in the Constitution, provided he is not violating any other law. So in that regard, FAS is a registered trust which was free to assist ZANU-PF if so ZANU-PF wished, and if the program or whatever during campaigns, it's perfectly legal. It's within the freedom of association that is enshrined in the Constitution. And then the last question was, are we happy with preparedness of ZEC? Whether we're happy with the voting process? We have not sat down to review the process. So government, on its part, we have not even received the reports from ZEC. These are the preliminary reports from some observers. It will be extremely premature to issue a statement on the happiness or unhappiness of government without us having received reports, deliberated on them, and formulate an opinion to say, are we happy with this process? And in any event, this will happen. ZEC will table its report in Parliament. The report will be given to the executive. Parliament will debate the report on the conduct of these elections and also formulate an opinion to say, as a country, are we happy with this? And the final report will actually be sent to the president to say, we concluded debate on this and this is what happened. So I think we are still early stages. The results are not even out, all of them, to answer that question. So I hope this is the last question, and I take this opportunity to hand over to the PS, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. I wonder if there are gaps, Secretary Mabiza, you may feel you may need to add one or two things.
Yeah, maybe you might have something burning that is skipped.
No,
you can say it.
The Honorable Minister has spoken, and I believe he has adequately covered the issues at hand.
Okay, thank you. Let me take this opportunity as Secretary for Information to just deal with one item which Honorable Minister you dealt with, but I think like we have done with the LGBT question, it's best to go to the text of what actually SADC said. Because I do not believe that SADC said that Zimbabwe was not compliant or something to that effect. But the actual text read, give me a second, where they say, okay. In conclusion, the mission observed that the pre-election and voting phases on 23 to 24 August harmonized elections were peaceful and calm. However, for reasons outlined above, where they pick one or two things, the mission noted that some aspects of the harmonized election fell short of the requirements of the SADC guidelines. Some aspects, not the whole election. So the depth and the context, the width of those aspects, which from the choice of words seems to be minor aspects, do not invalidate an election or do not render us in a crisis of any nature. As far as I can read the text. Thank you, Honorable Minister. Let me take this opportunity, of course, our colleagues from Namibia came here again as observers. So, of course, they are fly on the wall. So, we have to acknowledge them, but we will now close this press conference by thanking every member of the media that came here, and thank you for all your questions. You have been informed. Please go out there and inform. I thank you.